personal liberties. That being said, as these intrusions are taken back from the government, the people have to step forward and take personal responsibility for them. As an example, we repealed primary seatbelt law. That doesn't give me a right to quit wearing my seatbelt. That gives me the liberty to personally choose to wear my seatbelt and teach my children to wear their seatbelt. Not because the government's mandating it, but because I take personal responsibility for my own safety and safety of my children, and I say, wear your seatbelt, kids. So that's one example. We're picking on this primary seatbelt today, but and you can take that across the board in all areas of our lives. We have negated our responsibility, and the government has stepped in and taken over for us. And we can't continue to do that.
No, we can't.
Just real quickly, this is not Russia, China, Cuba, Germany, or the European Union for that matter. This is the Constitution of the United States of America. We have a republic, and that republic requires our personal responsibility.
Exactly. So you touched on the budget a little bit. We are going to see an enormous budget deficit, and I say north of $7 billion.
Yeah, I would say north of 10, but yeah, 7 to 10.
Uh-huh.
I want to mention, though, that I read the report from the state, Tom Stenson's report, preliminary report for the budgets coming up, the budget revenues coming up November forecast. In that projection, they're projecting for 12 and 13 and 14 a 10% increase in state revenue. Now, I don't know where they're planning to get a 10% increase in state revenue, because all signals are that we're not going to have a recovery for another 2 or 3 years at the best, and we are drastically short on revenue as it is now.
Well, the revenue projections yesterday came out down $29 million.
Right.
Oops, they goofed.
And these are projections that are south of what they projected in February. So the trend is to continue to go south, yet the forecast is increase. It says a 10% increase. With that 10% increase, they're projecting a $5 billion shortfall. So you just do the math, you're $8–10 billion in the hole because of the mandated growth of state government. Last year there was bills introduced and passed, some were passed, some weren't, that actually started a law, created a law, and that's not actually going to go into effect and enforce until 2014. So people who are elected in office today are voting and passing laws that aren't going to affect us for 2 or 3 more years, and then they get funded in 12 and 14 or 13 and 14 and forward. So people don't realize they're not just passing laws to affect us today, they're passing laws that will affect us decades down the road.
Scary.
Scary.
Really scary.
Really scary.
Really scary.
Yes.
Okay, so budget obviously has to be a top priority. How about jobs? You hear over and over and over again, government has to provide jobs. Will you please tell the people watching out in cable land why government doesn't provide jobs?
Okay, here's how it is. Government doesn't supply jobs because it takes money out of your pocket without your consent and will, and gives it to somebody else. That's different than the private sector, where I start a business. I'm making donuts, and I got this really good donut, and you come by and take a taste of this really nice donut. Tim made some really good donuts. I'm going to come back and participate in his business and do business with him and conduct commerce because I choose to conduct commerce. Therefore, I generate revenue and hire people. So I go on vacation, somebody else can do my job for me. That's fundamentally the difference. Yes, government can't create a police officer's job or whatever job, which actually police officers is a function of state government or government. But yes, they can create jobs, but in order to create those jobs, they take by force revenue, income, earnings from people who are productive.
Exactly
Very
right.
fundamentally different perspective. And people got to realize, we got to educate ourselves and do our research and understand what's going on.
Well, here's the other thing. You're hearing a lot of people now call for Governor Pawlenty's head because he signed a no new tax pledge. So you sign a no new tax pledge, guess what? He doesn't raise taxes. He raised lots of fees. He still under Governor Pawlenty's watch, we still continue to see government grow at 9–10%, I want to say, roughly, per year. So government continues to get bigger, continues to get more intrusive, continues to drive people, free market people like me, crazy.
Right.
And you're hearing the other side of the aisle call for tax increases. And what they don't understand is businesses don't pay tax increases. We, the people,
The consumer does.
the tax. Right. Explain that to the viewers.
The consumer ultimately pays the whatever the cost of doing business is, whether it's in taxes or raw materials or labor, whatever that cost is, the consumer ultimately pays that. And in corporate America, for whatever reason, doesn't generally pay taxes. They pass on those costs to the consumer.
Exactly.
So, right.
So when you're passing a tax increase, it means more money out of the consumer's pocket. So if you see your property taxes increased, which they are, if you see a sales tax increase, which you're going to see that on the table next legislative session as well. If you see income taxes increased, which you're going to see that on the table next year too. Every one of these, they say, it's the teeniest, tiniest little bit. You know, a little bit for income taxes, a little bit for property taxes, a little bit for that new Viking stadium, a little bit for some roads, a little bit more for that light rail transit shiny train that you like so much. All of these little bits are starting to add up now to be almost 50% of our income. 50% of our income coming out of our pocket while government picks winners and losers. And we the people are the losers.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, so one thing we need to realize is that, back to my point again, is we have generated this monster. It's easy for me to say, I like cherries, and Sue, you should buy me cherries.
I don't like cherries.
Well, I'm not asking you to like cherries. I'm the one that likes the cherries, so I'm going to go to the state capitol and find somebody who will introduce a bill to allow me to have cherries at your expense. Everybody likes it. I've been at the Capitol, talked to people in the street. It's more in the Capitol I found this. It's always, my project is the most important one. And as long as my project is funded, I'm happy. If you're going to cut the other guy's program. And I'm back to saying the Constitution is very clear what the limited fundamental scope of government is, and that's the problem, is we've allowed legislators to be in there saying, well, you know, this little bit over here, or this little bit over there, or this is a good program, and I'm not disputing these are good programs. I have no argument that a lot of programs are good programs, but they're not the function of government. If I want to build a bridge, then I need to raise funds to build a bridge. If I want to build a stadium, sorry Vikings, but if I want to build a stadium, then I got to raise the funds to build a stadium. Now, if I go to the state and say, hey, I bought this piece of property and I need a freeway by it to get the commerce to go on, that's the responsibility of state government to provide infrastructure to a function of private sector business, commerce. That's the responsibility of government.
So did I hear you correctly? You're going to tell Ziggy Wolf no?
Yes.
No stadium?
I'm telling Ziggy